Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hitting Bags and Stealing Balls. I'm your host, Matthew Fitzwater, and if you're wondering why my voice may sound a little grainy, it's unfortunately because I have strep throat, and I was gonna take a little bit longer of a break before I got back on here because my throat is obviously in a lot of pain, but there's been a lot of moves that have happened since you last heard from me. We'll jump right into it. We got a lot of one-year deals. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with Michael Conforto, signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers on a one-year, $17 million deal. So for 1 year, that's a lot of money, I feel like, for this guy. He is aging. He's going into his age 31 season. I mean, you look at his career statistics. He is a career .251 hitter, but he hasn't hit above that since 2020, in the COVID year. So he's had some down years. He's hit around the .237 mark. He's stuck around 14 to 16 home runs the last couple years. He did, in 2019, he hit 33 home runs. That was definitely his best season. But other than that, I mean, they're getting the floor when it comes to Michael Conforto. But I wouldn't doubt the Dodgers somehow turn him into an absolute stud. That's just what the Dodgers like to do. They'll go ahead and they'll put him in right field since Mookie apparently wants to keep playing shortstop. They'll have Tommy Edman in center. Listed Chris Taylor in left right now. Obviously, they could always bring back Teoscar Hernandez. I know both sides are interested in that. It just really depends on his asking price and if some other team gives him more money. But that's always a possibility. But yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. They gave a guy $17 million just to come in there and kind of fill a roster spot. He probably won't get much playing time. His splits are weird too. He's a left-handed hitter. 2 years ago, he crushed righties like most lefties do. But then this past year, he was actually better against lefties. So I wouldn't be surprised if they tap into him a little bit, but I don't see him being a full-time starter. Maybe I'm wrong, though. All right, and then we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the Guardians, who just brought back their previous ace pitcher in Shane Bieber on a one-year deal. He signed for $14 million. So, Shane Bieber obviously coming off of a big injury. I was curious whether or not he was going to go somewhere else on a one-year deal. I knew he was going to sign a one-year deal because when he's healthy, we've seen the potential he has. And so he can easily go back into free agency next year and earn what he deserves to earn. But coming off that injury, teams are going to be reluctant to give him that money unless he signs a one-year deal. I'm glad he's coming back to Cleveland, though, because you look at Cleveland and the rotation in the postseason and going in the next season, especially after they just lost Alex Cobb, we'll get to that in a minute, the rotation's going to be a little short. So you got Tanner Bybee, who I believe is still probably going to stay their ace. Then you plug in Shane Bieber as the number 2 guy. If he comes back healthy, I think he definitely has potential. Let's see, so, he pitched 128 innings in 2023, a 3.8 ERA, 200 innings in 2022, a 2.88 ERA, a 3.17 before that, and then obviously COVID year, he was the Cy Young winner. And sure, it's a shortened season, but I mean, he had a 1.6 ERA in 77 innings pitched, and he struck out 122 batters. So over his career, he averages a little over 9 or 10 strikeouts per game. So he can strike guys out. He has a 3.22 ERA over 843 innings pitched over his career. This guy's a stud. So they'll have Tanner Bybee, they'll have Gavin Williams, Shane Bieber, Ben Lively. I want to see them bring in another guy. I'm sure they have young kids they can call up. I know they have Tristan McKenzie waiting to come back up after they demoted him last year. He's been battling with a couple injuries, and he just hasn't looked the same. But I know they'll bring him back up. I'm sure he'll be maybe not as good as he once was, but he's going to pitch okay. Same with Shane Bieber, so I like them bringing him back. Other than that, though, there's not too much to say. We'll just see what he has, and I expect him to get a pretty decent contract next offseason. Next up, Alex Cobb. So as I mentioned previously, he left Cleveland. He went and signed with the Detroit Tigers on a $15 million deal for 1 year. So, you look at Alex Cobb. Last year he didn't pitch much. He didn't become available until the second half of the season. He only pitched 16 innings. But when he got into the postseason, he looked pretty good for that team. He's a big reason why they were able to make it all the way to the championship series to play the Yankees. Obviously, over his career, he's played for quite a few teams. He's played for 5 teams. But he's got a career 3.8 ERA over 1,300 innings pitched. He strikeouts about 7 per 9 innings, so not horrible, but also not great when it comes to strikeout numbers. He's going into his age 37 season, but they sign him for 1 year just to add him to that rotation that, again, is looking pretty thin. Last year in the postseason, they pretty much had to do a bullpen game every other game. I mean, when it gets to the playoffs, you want to at least have somebody to plug in there that you know when it comes to playoff time can pitch. And they saw that this previous season with the Guardians, that when it came postseason time, he showed up. So they've got Skubal, they've got Casey Mize, Alex Cobb, Reese Olson, and Kaider Montero. Looks pretty good. I'd like to see them go get another stud pitcher, but I think with that, if you can make it through the regular season, I think you'll be okay in the postseason. Then we have the Rays going out and signing Danny Jansen to a 1-year deal worth $8.5 million. So look, I mean, this out of all the moves is just kind of, I think it's probably going to affect the team the least amount. I don't see him being a starter in Tampa Bay. They don't really have a stud catcher there, but they can always call one up. They can always get a deal done for another young one. You know, Danny Jansen just really, he's not that great. He's got a career 220 average. You know, been in the big league 7 years. The most home runs he's hit in 1 year is 17. Good on defense, but, you know, he's just kind of you get him for $8.5 million. He can eat up some innings. You can put him behind the plate and not really worry about his defense too much, but he's not going to bring in many runs. So that's really all there is to say about that deal. All right, so now we'll get to the 2 bullpen pitchers that just signed 1-year deals. So we'll start first in New York with the Yankees. They went out and they just brought back Jonathan Loaisiga. For some reason, I tried to do my research on this one. I couldn't get how much money they're going to pay him. I looked at like 5 different articles. I couldn't get it. I know that they have a 2026 team option. So after next season, if they want to retain him, they can. Or they can just let him hit free agency again. Again, not sure how much, but no, it's not really a big move. We've seen him pitch okay in the past, but he's just hurt a lot. He's only pitched 1 full season over his career. He's pitched 70 innings 1 time. Other than that, he's never pitched over 50 innings, but that was in 2021, so that's been a couple years ago. He did have a 2.1 ERA, which is stellar, and he struck out 69 in those 70.2 innings. So, I mean, he had a really solid year. The Yankees' bullpen's looking pretty light, so I don't blame them for going out and just bringing him back. You know, it's probably just a couple million, which is probably why I couldn't find it. You know, you get the team option. If he's healthy all year, you might as well keep him. But you add him to a bullpen that you've got Luke Weaver, Mark Leiter Jr., Jake Cousins, Ian Hamilton. You know, I mean, their bullpen is pretty thin, and they could still bring back Tim Hill or Tommy Kahnle, but right now they haven't yet. They just wanted to get him in, eat up some innings, I'm sure, if he stays healthy this season in the bullpen. I don't expect him to be that great. It's just kind of a whatever move. And then for the second relief pitcher, we have the Phillies making a move and signing Jordan Romano to a 1-year, $8.5 million deal. So, here's the thing. Bullpen pitchers move around a lot. You know, some of them are dominant. You'll see teams want to keep their closers most of the time. But when it just comes to normal bullpen pieces, you can just go out and you can just get guys. And normally they'll produce at an okay rate. And So we saw the Phillies, trade away a couple bullpen pieces last year. And right now you're looking at a bullpen of Matt Strahm, Jose Alvarado, and now Jordan Romano, and that's pretty much it for now. Obviously, I assume they'll maybe make a trade to get one or two more guys in there, maybe sign one or two more guys. But as of right now, that's about it. And when you look at Jordan Romano, he's 31. He's pitched 229 career innings. Last year he only pitched 13, so he must have been hurt. He's been with the Blue Jays his whole career. But I mean, a 2.9 ERA over his career. He struck out 285 batters in 230 innings. I mean, those are pretty solid numbers. So I'm sure the Phillies will be able to get something out of him. Not too expensive, $8.5 million. Just get him in there, eat some innings. I'm sure that'll work out for the Phillies. I mean, that pretty much sums it up for the one-year deals. None of them are too major. Just getting some at-bats, getting some innings for these teams. Some of them was a little bit of an overpay looking at the Dodgers. But I'm sure these teams will be able to get something out of the guys they signed for 1 year. And, maybe those guys looking at Shane Bieber can go into the next offseason and really get some money. But now we're on to some of the bigger names, okay? We've got a couple trades, some big trades, but first I'll just go through the free agent signings, and then we'll get to the trades. All right, so the Baltimore Orioles went out and got Tyler O'Neill for 3 years and $49.5 million. And they gave him an opt-out after this season. So look, clearly this is a Santander replacement. They're not going to go get Santander and bring him back. Tyler O'Neill's cheaper. He's younger. The only thing is the injuries, but he's also going to have more potential, I think. So I kind of like this move. I was hoping, as you know by my predictions, that he was going to end up in the NL Central. But the Orioles, they went out and got him. In only 113 games last year, he obviously hit 31 home runs. He hit 241, which is about his career average, about the 245 mark. So about what Santander had. Obviously, 13 less home runs, but he also played 35, 40 less games. Plus, I'm gonna assume he's a better defender than Santander. So overall, I think this is just an improvement. It hurts to lose somebody that hits over 40 home runs, but you're gonna get somebody that's probably gonna hit a little bit better for average. You're gonna get probably a better fielder, and you're still gonna get some pop. I mean, you're gonna get probably, if he plays a full season, 35 to 40 home runs. And he's cheaper, and he's younger. I'm not sure why they included the opt-out. That's a little weird to me, because obviously if Tyler goes out there and he crushes the ball, then he's just going to opt out, and he's going to get more money and probably go somewhere else. But for now, I'll go ahead and I'll give the Orioles a round of applause. They went out and they got somebody cheaper, younger, and so you can't really fault them. But other than that, I mean, there's really not much else to say about that move. We'll see whether or not he can stay healthy and whether the Orioles, are helped big by him being in that lineup. So next up, Nathan Eovaldi goes back to the Texas Rangers on a 3-year, $75 million deal. So $25 million a year is pretty crazy. We know this guy can pitch, especially during the postseason. He's been around for 13 years now, but he's 34 years old. Now, we've seen pitchers pitch well into the late 30s, so even after this contract's up when he's 37, he might get a 1 or 2 year deal, But he clearly likes pitching in Texas. He did just win the World Series with them last year. And look, I mean, he's pitched 145 innings his first year in Texas, and then 170 last year, which I didn't realize he'd pitched that many innings last year. He had a 3.6 and then a 3.8 ERA. So, I mean, he's pitching some of his best, stuff the last couple years. 3.6 is one of the lowest ERAs of his career. He's striking out guys at almost a 1 per inning basis, a little less, but basically 1 per inning. So, I mean, he's getting up there in age, but he's still pitching pretty good. So I'm not really surprised that the Rangers wanted them back. So now Max Scherzer's a free agent. You're looking at the rotation. They've got John Gray. They've got Jacob deGrom, who should be healthy, although we know that's probably only going to last a month. I mean, that dude, I don't know why they signed him in the first place. You've got Kumar Rocker, who's going to be a stud, I think. Young kid. They brought him up late this past season. And I think going into the next season, starting in the big leagues, I think he's going to be an absolute stud. They've got Tyler Mahle, and now obviously they go out and they bring Eovaldi back. So, not a bad move. Pretty expensive for the 34-year-old pitcher, but like I said, I mean, he's having some of his best numbers the last 2 years over his career. And the Rangers underperformed like crazy this year. I mean, you can't expect them to do that again this season. They might not win the World Series again, but I mean, to not even make the postseason, I'm pretty sure they had a losing record. I mean, that's not... Everybody should be healthy on that team. The lineup should be clicking again. So I would expect him to be able to help them out and at least put up a fight in that division. Other than that, though, I mean, there's not really much more to say. I was going to save the Yankees for last, but I'm not going to do that because I'm going to save what is probably my favorite move so far for last. So we'll just jump right in. Max Fried signed a 8-year, $218 million deal with the New York Yankees, which is actually the highest contract ever given out to a left-handed pitcher. And look, people are saying it's an overpay, and it might be. You know, that's a lot of money, especially 8 years. You know, he's already 30, but Max Fried deserves his money, man. I mean, I'm pretty sure since 2020, he's had like the lowest ERA in the league or something like that. I mean, this dude, he finished second in Cy Young voting in 2022. He finished 5th in 2020. And, I mean, the dude's just an absolute stud. The Yankees lost out on Soto. So you have to be willing to overspend to make your team better. Otherwise, people are going to look at you like you failed. And so I'm okay with them going out and adding another left-handed pitcher to that rotation. So, I mean, Max Fried, he's got 884 career innings pitched, a 3.07 ERA. You know, if it wasn't for his first 3 seasons, that number would definitely be below the threes. And then you look at strikeouts, 863, so not quite 1 per inning. But, I mean, it's about that level. So he's not a big strikeout guy. He's more of a ground ball guy. You know, doesn't give up a lot of home runs, which I think would be good in Yankee Stadium because balls carry in that park. They really do. But, yeah, I mean, overall, I just like this move. Not so much just because of what it does for the rotation, but also because it gives you 3 or 4 guys you can now trade to bring in another bat to replace Juan Soto, which is not going to be that easy. You know, there's not going to be another guy like Juan Soto, but if you can just get another solid hitter in front of or behind Judge, then that lineup's going to be dangerous. I mean, it just is. But you look at the rotation, you got Garrett Cole, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, so there's the 2 lefties that I like. And then Luis Hill, Clark Schmidt, Nestor Cortez, and Marcus Stroman. So look, Stroman probably going to be gone. We're going to find a way to get him out. He's cost too much salary, and I don't think he's going to get any time to start. So I don't know if they're going to want to pay a guy that to be a long reliever, you know what I mean? Nestor Cortez, another lefty. I'd be okay with them keeping him. You know, he's done a lot for this team. And we kind of did him dirty last year, I'm not going to lie. But he's done a lot, so I wouldn't be mad if they kept him. But that's a trade chip. You look at Clark Schmidt, who I think out of all these is the one I'd rather keep the most. But, again, another good trade chip. And then, of course, rookie of the year, Luis Hill, which I think is probably the number 1 best trade chip. Again, I obviously would love if we could keep him, because then our rotation from 1 to 5 is absolute just like a gut punch, especially come playoff time. But if they trade him to get another big bat, the rumors are that they've had discussions with the Astros about Kyle Tucker, who would be another 1-year rental. But I'm willing to pay that price. They're saying that in order to just even begin negotiating for Kyle Tucker, Luis Hill has to be on the table. And I'm okay with that. And I've seen most Yankees fans on social media also be okay with that. We want to win. We know the window is only a couple years. Judge is getting older. Garrett Cole's getting older. Max Fried's obviously 30, which we just got him. Rodon's getting older. Stanton's out in 2 years. I mean, we have to put all our chips on the table right now because I know this team can win. And so they have to be willing to send a guy like Luis Hill to get a guy like Kyle Tucker. But regardless, even if no more trades happen, I'm happy with the rotation. I'm glad they went out and got a Max Fried, who's a stellar left-handed pitcher, doesn't give up many home runs. Probably a little bit of an overpay, but I'm okay with it. I think that was a really solid move by the Yankees. And I'm glad that Max Fried seemed like he really wanted to play there. So hopefully we'll see the best out of Max Fried. All right, so last but certainly not least, my favorite move so far this past week. Willy Adames to the San Francisco Giants, 7 years, $182 million, and a full no-trade clause. So look, I love it, okay? I'm glad that Buster Posey comes in as the GM in his first offseason. Sure, he lost Blake Snell, but he goes, we're going to win at something this offseason. Let's go out and let's get Willy Adames. Look, we've talked about Willy Adames. He's been great defensively in the past. This past season, he was one of the worst graded defensive shortstops in the league. I'm not really sure how. I don't think that's going to stay, a constant. I think that's going to change. He's going to go back to being on the plus side. At least I hope. Otherwise, this is going to be a bad move in the long run, but I think he'll be fine. We've seen the power. He's hit 31, 24, and then 32 home runs over the last couple years. He just had 112 RBIs this past year. He hit 251, which is fine. He did hit 238 and 217 the 2 years before that, but he's coming off his best season. He does strike out a decent amount, and his OBP has never been stellar. It's been good. He had a 331 this season, which is pretty great. He had a 298 and then a 310 the past 2 years. So those aren't too wonderful, but he can clearly walk. And I love it, man. I think when you put him in that infield, so let's take a look here. You obviously have Matt Chapman at third base, who was one of the best third basemen last year, if not the best. His bat took a while to heat up, but he's obviously a multi-time Gold Glove third baseman. He signs that huge extension. Now you go out, you get Willy Adames to put on that left side of the infield. I mean, if Adames goes back to playing at least medium defense, medium to plus defense, I mean, that left side of the infield is going to be scary for teams to face, dude. Especially with that power. I mean, them guys are both 30-plus homer guys. And then you look at the rest of the infield. So, you've got Patrick Bailey at catcher. I love it. You've got second base, Tyler Fitzgerald, good. He's going to be good at second base. You got Lamonte Wade Jr. at first, who's a little bit of a platoon guy, but he's good, And then you look at the outfield, you've got Heliot Ramos, who was great. You've got Jung-Ho Lee, who has the potential to be great, although he got hurt. I'm looking at that Giants lineup, and I'm really starting to like it, man. I mean, the rotation needs some work. You've got a lot of young kids. You've got Kyle Harrison. You've got Hayden Birdsong, Keaton Wynn. Those guys can pitch okay. They're still young. They can always improve. You've obviously got Logan Webb at the top, who's an absolute stud. I love Logan Webb. Then you've got Robbie Ray, which if he makes a comeback, he's been hurt so many times recently. But if he somehow makes a comeback, your rotation, I mean, the Giants might put up a fight. They're obviously not going to be the favorites, especially not in front of the Padres or the Dodgers. But, I mean, they can put up a fight in that division, man. They can easily sneak in with a wild card spot. I'd plan on them maybe making a trade, maybe signing another big pitcher, or just another big hitter if they really want to. But right now with that move, I'm really happy with it. I love seeing Adames go to the Giants. I think that's a great move for both. I think Adames will benefit being on the left side of the infield with Chapman. and having guys in that lineup that can get on base in front of him. And then obviously with the Giants, I mean, $182 million. I honestly don't think that's too much of an overpay for a guy like Adames. I like the move. All right, so we got the free agent signings out of the way. Let's take a look at some of the trades. Some of these are pretty big moves. We'll start with the littlest one, I think, which is going to bring us back to the Texas Rangers. So look, the Rangers, they went ahead, they sent 2 infield prospects and a left-handed pitching prospect to the Miami Marlins for Jake Burger. Okay, so the reason I say this is probably the least out of the 3, because Jake Burger's not bad. He's a .250 career hitter, which, I mean, he's only been in the league for 4 years. And we've seen him hit 34 home runs. This past year, he just hit 29. So we know he's got some pop over at third base. But that's the problem, is that other than the pop, he doesn't have much to offer. He's not great defensively. I mean, he's more of a DH type. Maybe you can plug him in over at first base. Maybe he'll be an okay defender at first base. But, I mean, it's just, I mean, you send 3 prospects. None of them are, top-tier prospects. But I'm looking at the Rangers roster. I'm not sure what they're going to do with it. Again, DH is a possibility. But you've got Josh Jung and Josh Smith at third base. You've got Marcus Semien at second. Corey Seager at short. You have Nathaniel Lowe at first. I mean, other than DH, I'm not really sure where you put Jake Burger. He's not going to be a good defensive third baseman. You can't put him over both of those Joshes. I guess you could put him at first over Nathaniel Lowe, but I like Nathaniel Lowe. I think he's a good player. And so, to be honest with you, I mean, it's not a steep price to pay. Like I said, 3 prospects that aren't really, much to balk at. But, I mean, I guess they just wanted to add some more power to the lineup. Their lineup was pretty hurt this past season. So they probably just wanted to bring in a guy that they could plug in if somebody gets hurt at either one of the corners, or maybe they're going to let him play DH full-time, which, I mean, I wouldn't be totally against in that lineup. That definitely, a lot of them guys are some big contact hitters, and so if you put him in the back with some power, that's bound to work out. So we'll see what the Rangers do with that. Again, not too big of a move. We'll have to see in a couple years what them prospects turn into in Miami, if any of them become anything, and then, we'll actually be able to grade the trade. But right now, I'd say it's pretty middle of the road. I'm not too worried about it. All right, so next up, one that actually genuinely surprised me. There wasn't many rumors around this one. Most of the time when you're looking on X, you can kind of see stuff start to materialize, as reports come out, as rumors come out. But this one, I just woke up and was like, okay. Okay, so the Guardians sent Nick Sandlin, who's a stud relief pitcher, and Platinum Glover, Andres Jimenez, to the Blue Jays. Now, this was a 3-team trade, but at first, this is what came out. So they got back an outfield minor leaguer, Nick Mitchell, and then Spencer Horwitz from the Blue Jays. Now, Horwitz plays first base. He's a pretty solid hitter. And so, when I first saw that, my initial thoughts was, okay, they're going to deal Naylor to get a stud pitcher. Then they're going to have Kyle Manzardo and Spencer Horwitz be at first base. A platoon, or just let Manzardo play, maybe put Horwitz at DH. I'm not sure how he grades out defensively. He's still incredibly young. Both them guys are. And so I was expecting Naylor news to come soon. Well, then a third team got involved. So then the Guardians sent Horwitz to Pittsburgh. In exchange, they got Luis Ortiz, who's had some big league time. He can start and he can pitch out of the bullpen. He's not a big strikeout guy. His ERA this past season was 3.3, which is pretty great in 135 innings. So not bad, but he's not a star by any means. However, we've seen Cleveland be able to tap into pitching before, so maybe that's going to end up being a great move for them. Then They get 2 left-handed pitchers who I believe are prospects. And basically what this appears to be to me is just a huge salary dump. Andres Gimenez was owed a lot of money over the next couple seasons. And while, like I said, he's a Gold Glover and a Platinum Gloving defender at second base, the dude just can't hit at a major league level. And so they just drafted that absolute stud power hitting second baseman, which he'll probably be up in 2 or 3 years. You can plug somebody in there in the meantime, and you ain't got to pay Andres Gimenez. You get a starting and relief pitcher in Luis Ortiz. You get a couple left-handed young kids. So look, it's an okay move. It's not great by any means, but you save money. You still get a couple people to kind of help with your needs. And then with the Blue Jays, well, first, okay, the Pirates, I think, are going to use Spencer Horwitz. They don't have a first baseman. I think they're going to put him right in first base at the start of the season, and he's going to hit. I don't know if he's going to grade out defensively, but they're going to use him, and he can hit. So the Pirates, honestly, I mean, I like the move by the Pirates. You don't really have to give up too much. We know their rotations are already solid. Get a good hitter in that lineup. So I think the Pirates, honestly, might have won this trade. Maybe that's a bit of an over-exaggeration. But you go to the Blue Jays. You add that Gold Glover, Platinum Glover at second base. Nobody's mad. They are going to have to pay him a lot. But then you obviously have Bo Bichette at short. You've got Vlad at first. So, I mean, their defense isn't awful. We've seen Bo play at an okay level. He's declined over the years. But I think their infield defense definitely got a lot better with Gimenez joining the infield. I mean, he's just that good at defending. And so I like the move by the Blue Jays. It's not going to change anything. They're still probably, unless they go out and get a Hernandez or a Santander, it's not going to change the outlook of next season for them. But, I mean, it's an okay move. I like it most for the Pirates. You get a first baseman that can hit. You just plug them in there. You didn't have to give up too many pieces. You know, other than that, there's not really much to say. Finally, the big trade. This one I'm excited to talk about. For both sides, honestly, the Red Sox go out and they get Garrett Crochet from the White Sox. And they did have to give up a decent amount for this, okay? They did have to give up Kyle Till, who's a catcher. He's a number 25 prospect in Major League Baseball. They had to give up an outfielding prospect, an infielding prospect, and then a right-handed pitcher. So, look, I mean, you have to give up 4 prospects, but honestly, for a pitcher like Garrett Crochet, I mean, they got to keep their 2 top prospects. They kept Roman Anthony, who's the number 3 in Major League Baseball, and then the number 7, Marcelo Mayer. I mean, you get to keep both of those guys, and you get an absolute stud strikeout pitcher in Garrett Crochet. I mean, big move by the Red Sox. It really is. You look at the rotation now, they've got Garrett Crochet's obviously going to be their ace. Tanner Houck, Cutter Crawford, Brian Bayo, Garrett Whitlock. I mean, that is a solid rotation. It started to fall off a little towards the end last year, but we know what the potential is. They could still sign a Corbin Burns, although it looks like they don't want to pay him the money. They could go out, they could get a Walker Buehler. They can still add, man. So I genuinely like this move. It kind of scares me as a Yankees fan, to be honest with you, because clearly they're willing to send some of their prospects to get good players. I mean, they could easily trade for a star bat to put in that lineup. They still have Tristan Casas to deal away if they want to do that. They can still get a Hernandez or a Santander to put in the outfield since they lost out on Juan Soto. I mean, look, the Red Sox, it's a little scary that they're not willing to spend the money to get a Corbin Burns. Again, that could just be a rumor. They could go out and they could get him tomorrow, but still, if you're willing to deal with your prospects, because after all, you don't know if these guys are going to, Kyle Till, 25th ranked in Major League Baseball. You know how many times we've heard that and guys just haven't turned out to be as good as they're supposed to be. So sometimes you have to be willing to deal these guys away. You get a pitcher like Garrett Crochet. I just went through the rotation. It's looking pretty solid. But you look at it from the other side, the White Sox side, they now have 6 prospects in the top 100. Again, We don't know if these guys are going to turn out good, but you still have trade pieces in Chicago, okay? You still got Luis Robert. You've got Andrew Vaughn if they want to deal him away. And you already have 6 in the top 100. I mean, look, that's a start. Chicago fans, I've told you, you're not going to be very good next year. I get that. But trade in the pieces you have that can compete now and try to do this thing over again. You've already failed the rebuild once. The odds of doing it a second time are pretty slim, man. So get these guys out there, get some kids back, and let's see if in 2 or 3 years you can start to build a lineup or build a rotation. So, yeah, I like the move for both sides. It's obviously going to benefit the Red Sox right now a lot more. I don't know how far any of those kids the White Sox got are, away from being able to be in the big leagues. They might be 2 or 3 years out. But it's not much of a loss for either side. I mean, 4 prospects for any player is pretty much what you like. And I'm not looking forward to seeing the Yankees face Garrett Crochet because they like to strike out and he loves to strike guys out. But good move for the Red Sox. That's something to be happy about if you're a Boston fan. And that pretty much sums up the free agent signings that happened this past week since you guys last heard from me, and obviously some of the big trades. I'm sorry again if my voice was a little messed up this episode. I'm still getting over the strep throat. But I appreciate you guys listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I have something planned Monday. If more signings happen, I might just go ahead and post the signings on Monday and then maybe do the bonus episode on like a Wednesday or something. But I definitely have a couple things planned coming up, so just make sure to follow me. I really appreciate that. Anytime you guys can help me out by sharing, commenting, liking, following me. Follow me on all my socials too, not just on Spotify. The YouTube's coming soon. But I just greatly appreciate any support, you guys. Thank you. I'm sorry it's been almost a week since you've heard from me. Hopefully it won't be that long again for a while. I assume since the winter meetings are over, it's going to slow down a little bit. But still, there's some big names still out there to sign, especially when it comes to outfielders and pitchers. So just look out for that. And I'd love for you guys to comment and just let me know, what signing you like the most, which guy's going to have the most impact on his new team, whether that be from the trade or from the signing. And just stay tuned, guys, and just keep supporting me. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.